Welcome to the Nickles and Dimes Finding Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and I look forward each and every week to bringing you amazing content that will provide you with a financial education, will support you on your financial journey, and most importantly, help you to find financial freedom. I hope you enjoy today's episode. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and today I'm discussing elder care. So as you guys know from a lot of episodes in the past, I've referenced the fact that my parents live with me, that I'm a caretaker, and I believe a few episodes ago mentioned that I'm really pivoting. I've really dialed in my target audience to the sandwich generation, right? So we've raised our kids, and we're ourselves getting closer to retirement, but we're likely caring for or supporting in some way an elderly loved one in retirement. And when I really dialed this in a few months back, it really brought my personal life and my business life so much closer together. So much so that I'm currently working on some coaching and some course content around elder care specifically and what it takes to get prepared for that, which will include the financial piece. So of course on here, I'm still going to talk about all things finance as they apply to the different topics that I cover each week. But I'm going to be putting a lot more in when it comes to elder care, when it comes to caring for chronic conditions, when it comes to all the nuts and bolts of both preparing yourself for retirement and whatever kind of care you may require in the future, as well as what you may be going through supporting or caring for a loved one. And that can entail a lot of different things. That's why I think there's so much importance around really talking and deep diving into different topics that are included in elder care, retirement preparation, and so forth. So today what I want to do is kind of go through kind of an overview of different topics, and then I'll be utilizing these as we go forward I'll be utilizing some of these as we go forward in some of the episodes to deep dive a little bit further. And so my hope is that this information can reach those of you out there who need it, that you can realize you're not alone, and that you can feel empowered to take action in the areas you need to for yourself and for your loved ones. So let's go ahead and dive in. Like I said, I'm just getting started in preparing some coaching and course content around elder care. And so what I have right now that I want to talk about today are 10 bullet point discussion topics, whatever you want to call them, that fall under elder care. Things you need to be prepared for, things you need to know are coming your way, whether it's for you or for somebody else. So I want to kind of go through all 10 of those topics and just talk a little bit about them today. And then, like I said, I'll deep dive more in the future, probably on all of these at some point. But let's just get started. So the first one is understanding caretaking roles and responsibilities. So look, I've said before, if you don't see yourself as a hands-on caretaker, there is nothing wrong with that. I think to avoid any issues, it's important to talk about that, to let your loved ones know, if you don't see moving your parents in with you like I have, if you don't see hands-on caring for them every day, cooking their meals, making sure their doctor's appointments are set, that, you can get them where they need to be, having home health come in, managing all of that. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody is wired to do every job in any aspect in the world, let alone when it comes to caretaking, because it's a lot. No matter how in depth your role in that is, it's a change and it's a lot, and it's stepping into parenting in some form or fashion, or overseeing in some form or fashion, for somebody who likely played that role in your life when you were small, right? So there's just that emotional transition alone, let alone all of the tactical things that have to happen. So, first and foremost, I'm going to say definitely have those conversations. And you guys, they are not fun conversations, but the sooner that you have the conversations about expectations on both sides, um, I think you can really start to formulate a great plan. Like you might have a sibling that does have the desire to be a caretaker, and that can solve a lot of issues. You know, your loved one or your parents, whoever it is, may not want to live with you and be taken care of by you, and nothing against you, but they may see a different vision for their future. For my parents, you know, my mom's mom was in a nursing home. Gosh, I think maybe around 10. So 40 years ago, my grandmother was in a nursing home, and like nursing home, elder care facilities, retirement facilities, um, are so different now than they were then. But in my mom's mind, especially with her dementia, she doesn't see what is now. She only remembers what was then, and it concerns her. And so she voiced that to my brother and I when we had these conversations a couple years ago, and I was willing and able to step up, um, to do as much as I'm able to do, or as much as with additional support from home health or whatever we can provide for her. Um, when the time comes. Right now, my mom, you know, she still dresses herself, feeds herself, goes to the bathroom on her own, showers for the most part without assistance. And so there's not a ton of that. We have had some home health come in for physical therapy and things, but you know, as long as that can be provided in my home in a manner that best cares for my mom, then I'm in. I'm all in. And I think, you know, being that involved, we'll know when the time comes, or her health deteriorates in other areas that requires more care, or um, the home environment isn't going to support it any longer. And we'll make the changes when we have to. And so that's the promise I made to my mom. Like, look, there may come a time where we don't have an option. You know, the only option is to put you somewhere that you can get the proper care that you need. But until that time comes, um, we'll do everything we can to avoid it or prolong it as long as possible, right? Now, when you look at me, my son and I have had a conversation. He flat out said, Mom, I'm not moving you in with me and taking care of you, but I'll put you in the best place out there. And I said, buddy, it's okay, because I see myself in, you know, the next 10 years. My goal is to have 2 or 3 investment properties in places I love to go that I'm able to utilize a month or two a year and kind of live the nomad life. Not necessarily just stay in one place. And so at that point, depending on the situation, maybe I get, you know, a condo or something in a retirement community where I'm still completely independent. I can come and go as I want. I still drive, all of those kind of things, as long as my health is good. You know, I have a place to land when I need to, but I'm kind of going places and living my life and traveling and doing all these amazing things, you know, when I have the ability and the means to do that. And I don't see myself retiring from the work I do ever. I love the work that I do, and I can work from anywhere. All I need is a Wi-Fi signal. So that being said, like the way I view that for me, and my son was able to openly voice how he felt about it, they coincide. And then, you know, my desire to do what I'm doing for my parents coincided with what they wanted as well. So definitely have those conversations, and the sooner you have them, the better. Don't wait until the time comes, because there's so much emotion attached to so much more emotion attached to those conversations if you're in a situation where you feel like you don't have all your options, or you haven't been able to plan for it, or whatever the case may be. So Understanding your role is important. Are you hands-on? Are you a support for somebody else in your family who's hands-on? Are you just financial oversight to help make sure that the things they need are taken care of, that insurance is set up, that, whatever the case may be, identify that role you're going to play, the different roles that are needed, and allow different people, if you have the option, to step up in your family to help take on some of those roles, because doing all of it, is really, really heavy. And I am blessed that, my brother lives about 1,200 miles away, so he's not right around the corner. But certainly they come in to, visit quarterly, spend a long weekend, spend times with my parents and things. But also, he is my sounding board. So I'm able to call him and talk about whatever I need to talk about. And sometimes I call him with the funniest stories about my parents. And sometimes I call him because it's hard. And sometimes we just chat. So in all honesty, I feel like at this stage in our lives, it's brought us closer, or our communication has become more frequent, which I'm really grateful for. And I guess, in some way that does bring us closer. My brother and I have always been pretty close. So anyway, talk about all the forms of caretaking. Who can or has the desire to fill in, or where can you find it? And what does that look like? And also, the sooner you do that, you can plan for that financially. Find out what your parents have in place. Find out what else you need to put in place, if anything, and help them feel confident that they're prepared when the time comes. Like, even if you're in your 20s and your parents are in their mid to late 40s, right? Have those conversations now. And look, life may change along the way, but when you've had the main conversation, you've gotten that off your plate, the conversations about maybe what changes along the way are a lot easier to have, right? Because you already have a foundation for that. The next thing, number 2, would be balancing caretaking and personal finances. So, look, like I said, there's a lot of different roles. So make sure you know who's best suited for which role, who's willing to take on which role. I have a corporate background of 20 years in finance and accounting. I've have almost 5 years now in personal accounting and building my own business and helping individuals plan for retirement and things like this. And so, my dad is also very healthy still and capable. He does have pretty significant arthritis, but he's 82. He took up golf this spring. He still drives. So my dad still manages their finances on the day to day, but we have sat down and gone through everything. When we sold their home, money that they had in savings and things, we put it in places that it can continue to grow and ensure that they're going to have what they need when they need it. But we were all involved in that. And then my dad manages it as a whole. And I'll talk a little more, I think, as I go through here. Yeah. About kind of what we have in place for, if my dad were to pass before my mom, and that those conversations need to be had too. But yeah, so definitely, make sure you're set up, you're managing your finances, both to support caregiving if and when it's needed, as well as retirement planning, because you may plan to live in retirement on, I don't know, a $5,000 a month budget. Like, by the time you get there, your house will be paid off, all the things. And so you feel like you only need $5,000 a month. Well, when caretaking comes in place, if there's caretaking required, outside the home or inside the home, but it involves, external nursing support and things like that, the cost of that is significantly more expensive than just living your day-to-day life in a retirement. So you need to make sure you have plans for both of those situations. Nowadays you can get life insurance with long-term care attached to it, which means you would have access to your life insurance benefit while you're still living to help cover some of those costs. You can also set up additional accounts to what's going to provide for you in retirement to save funds that will be utilized if and when you need caretaking. There's a lot of different options there. So look into all those, ask all the questions, find out what you feel like works best for you or your loved one, and just make sure y'all are on the same page, and then budget accordingly for that, right? You still want to have, you want to know that that money's there. And then at the time that caretaking or additional expenses or whatever the case may be come into play, you're going to add those things into your detailed budget that you're tracking, right? But if it's just a savings account or an investment account that's saving for that, or a policy you've put in place to provide that those additional funds, just know where those are and what they are. Make sure the right people in the family have access to them, so that if and when you need them, you can get that money. Basically, you have access to that money as you need it. So that's number 2. Number 3, long-term care planning and insurance. So I just kind of touched on that a little bit, but look at all the different kinds of long-term care options, meaning, being in a retirement facility, being in a nursing, full-time nursing care facility, having nursing support in the home. Look at all those different options, because you don't know what one you're going to need, and you don't know when you're going to need it. But know what they are and be aware of the costs associated with that. That's really going to help you plan for those and make sure you have the right amount of insurance in place, savings, whatever the case may be. Okay. And then understand what long-term covers. Understand what long-term insurance is and how its benefits work. Again, so you know what you have access to, when you have access to it, and the process for getting access ASAP should the need arise. Okay. Number 4, legal and healthcare directives. So making sure that you have power of attorneys in place, legal power of attorney, financial power of attorney, medical power of attorney. With my parents, we did a trust, and I'll touch on that again in a few more bullet points when we get to estate planning. But within that trust, it provided all of the power of attorney, the healthcare directive of what my parents' wishes are. Should they not be able to make a medical decision for themselves. And all of that can be incorporated with that. So looking at a trust process will take care of some of these things for you. So that's really good. So whether you set that up on your own, my parents' trust was very straightforward and simple. So it was something I was able to do via a service I paid a flat fee for. If you have many siblings or a large extended family, and there's a lot of assets, and you have a desire for things to go a lot of different places, or your loved one does, I would recommend probably working with an attorney in a situation like that. Once I did my parents' trust, I did have it reviewed by an attorney to make sure there wasn't anything missing or anything like that. So just look at all those options, talk to somebody that can help you set things up, educate you on long-term care insurance. If you don't have somebody, reach out to me. I would be happy to spend some time sharing the different kinds of long-term plans that I work with and why and what they provide. I'm going to add one more thing here, because I don't think it's a standalone item, and that's a final expense policy. So in addition to life insurance, in addition to long-term care, I believe there's a huge benefit in having a final expense policy. Just like life insurance, the younger you are when you get this, the less expensive the monthly premiums are. Now, that being said, this is a policy that maybe could be anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000, depending on the type of funeral you want. If you want to be buried versus cremated, how fancy you want your funeral to be, etc. But that money comes available with the right company and the right plan. You could set up, that kind of financial support to be available within 48 hours with a single phone call to help cover funeral expenses and things like that. Because life insurance, on average, takes about 3 months to pay out. It's waiting for a death certificate and all these kind of things. And if there's any questions around cause of death or, something like that, it could be delayed even further. If there's a fight over who gets it, beneficiaries, it just could delay all of that. And so even though you have that money there, you potentially could still be in a situation where you need to borrow money from the bank or a family member or a GoFundMe to help cover a funeral. Just put something in place. They're very inexpensive. To know that within 48 hours, your family has access to money. And even within those policies, you can set up exactly what you want your funeral to be like. So all the details can be there that make it really easy for your family members to be able to focus on grieving over your loss, rather than trying to figure out what you would have wanted when it comes to your final expenses. So that's just a little bonus I added in there. So then emotional well-being and self-care for caretakers. That's number 5. You guys, it's so important to make sure you stay focused on you. One of the things I've learned this last year is that, man, when you become the parent of your parents, it's a huge shift. I think when I had my son, he was so tiny and completely dependent on me. And I had a little bit of, well, a lot bit of postpartum stuff that I was working through. But it was really heavy to realize a human life is completely dependent on me. With my parents, they are not in a position where they're completely dependent on me at this time. And in some ways, it's like, okay, there's still a lot they can do for themselves. But in other ways, it requires more, like communication, um, paying attention to understand what they're feeling, what you're feeling, and especially what you're feeling as you go through the process. When I found out my parents couldn't live on their own anymore, I went into business mode. And for me, business mode means I turn off the emotion and I just get stuff done. Okay. So in doing that, I push everything emotional, hard emotionally, that kind of thing to the side. Now, there were couple little cracks in my armor when we were actually packing my parents' things and moving them out of their home. But I don't think once we got them settled here in Texas, I really took the time to feel all of that and understand where I was and what I needed on an ongoing basis to just stay in tune with myself. And so over, the first probably, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 months they were here, I was constantly bouncing back and forth. Okay, I'm building my business. My business needs this. I have to focus here. Oh, wait, what do my parents need? How much do I show up for them? All those kind of things. And I've talked about that before, but it really wore me down even more. And I just got to a place where this spring, and don't get me wrong, like I think that this was for me the way it had to be, and definitely a blessing in the long run. But I was forced to slow down because I was so worn out. I was forced to slow down and figure out why. Why do I feel like I'm doing everything, but none of everything is getting done well? And it's because that was the truth. And that is when I really focused on who my target audience is. Like it shifted because my life shifted and I understood the need and importance for some specific things that tied directly to my business, like retirement planning, long-term care planning, caretaking planning, all that kind of stuff. And so that's when I feel like what I do on the daily in my personal life and in my business suddenly came into alignment. So definitely a blessing in the long run. But like I'm known for, I often take the long way to get to things that I need to. So make sure you're paying attention to your emotional well-being, and self-care for yourself if you're the caretaker. And if you are just a support caretaker or a financial support, like the people that are caretaking, if it's another family member, make sure you're reaching out, you're checking on them. You're saying, hey, do you need me to come in town? Or if they live in the same city, do you need me to drive over next Thursday and just give you a day to yourself? Like, can I step in for you and give you a break now and then? I think if it's caretaking from a nursing perspective and whatever, like those people wear their emotions on their sleeves and they get business done, right? Like me, they take care of what needs to be taken care of, but they still they get connected to their patients and their clients. So make sure that you appreciate them from time to time, and give them a chance to, I don't know, get them a dinner gift certificate or a massage certificate or something, at the holidays each year. I don't know, something that just lets them know that you see them, you appreciate everything they're pouring into you or your loved one, and that you want them to take some time for themselves. Okay. Number 6, transitioning from caretaking to retirement. So preparing for the shift from caretaking to personal retirement goals, right? So right now, like, I'm very focused on the caretaking of my parents as I'm still building, all of my retirement funds, my investments, setting and adjusting goals as things change, over time. But those are two different things, right? So for me, I caretake for my parents, but I need to make sure I'm paying attention to my personal retirement goals, that I have things lined out so that I know when the time comes, I have the things in place to make whoever's caretaking for me as easy as possible. And it is not going to be easy by any means, but if you can make it a little bit simpler, if you can make sure things are lined out and things are documented and plans are in place, it can definitely help with that a lot. So um, those two things both need to be paid attention to. So look, as you transition from caretaking for somebody else into your own retirement, maybe that loved one's passed, or maybe they're into a facility. And so you're more of a support role. You go visit and love on them and things like that, but somebody else is doing the daily caretaking. Now's the time to focus back in on where you're at. Are you aligned with what you wanted? Are you on track with all of your financial goals for retirement and things like that? So make sure that you have strategies in place to maintain your own financial stability during that process or that transition. Okay. Number 7, investment and retirement planning. I talk about this all the time. I'm not going to deep dive here, because you can go back and listen to my episodes. I talk about the importance of retirement savings, setting goals for the type of life you want to live in retirement. I talk about, even today I've talked about long-term care insurance. I've talked about life insurance in its different forms at many times. So I'm not going to deep dive there, but definitely make sure that you have the pieces in place or you have a plan built to add to over time, depending on your age, to make sure everything is set up and ready to go at the point you step into retirement yourselves. All right, number 7, or I'm sorry, that was number 7, investment and retirement planning. Number 8, healthcare and medical expenses in retirement. So, be aware of what the healthcare costs are in retirement and plan on them, right? Like, we have, what is it, Medicare for retirement, right? My parents have that. My dad also has VA benefits available to him. And then my mom has some additional coverage from the company she retired from as well. So understanding what each of those are, what role they play, who's primary, who's secondary, when you get a new doctor or when you go to the hospital or something, what information do they need? Make sure you understand what all that is, that it's in place, and you have access to the information you need to provide for someone you're caretaking for, or that whoever's caretaking for you has that information or knows where to access it as well. Look at all the different kind of healthcare options, right? Within Medicare, there are a lot of add-ons you can put that are reasonably affordable, that are going to cover all types of additional things on top of your basic medical care. So make sure you get with a Medicare professional. And if you need one, I know a couple of them and they're amazing and fantastic. So they can help you navigate Medicare because it is a government program. There's a lot to it. It's a process, and understand all that it provides and doesn't provide. There are specialists out there that can teach you, look, Medicare is going to cover your healthcare, your general healthcare and stuff. But if it comes to long-term care, your assets get used to pay for that before Medicare steps in and pays for that. And I will do an episode deep diving more on that topic in the future. So definitely look for that. All right. Number 9, estate planning and inheritance. Again, look, a will is a catch-all. But a will does not avoid probate. A will can be contested. There's just so many things that a will is good if that's all you have, but you have the ability to get a trust, and you can get a trust for a reasonably inexpensive amount of money. But also, even if it's a few $1,000s to get your trust set up, or $10,000 or $15,000 if you have crazy assets and a big old family and businesses and all these things you own, in my opinion, it is worth every single penny to make sure your wishes are honored upon your passing. Okay, so in a will, you can designate who gets this, who gets that, who gets whatever. Your life insurance and stuff that actually have beneficiaries attached, they're going to go to that person, but you don't have any say. Like, say you want to, leave an amount of money that is managed by a trust to pay for each of your grandkids' college education, or if they don't go to college, to pay for the equivalent amount to be used for a down payment on their first home, or things like that. You can't do that within a will. So that's where a trust comes into place. You can pass on certain things to beneficiaries, tangible items, different assets and things that you want. But if you have one of your life insurance policies or an investment account that you want to be held by the trust to be utilized according to these parameters, or be distributed according to these parameters at this age to your heirs, that needs to be done within a trust. So, like I said, get with an estate planning attorney. I think that's your best bet. Like I said, my parents was very simple, and I was pretty familiar with the program that I used for their trust. But I also had a resource of an estate planning attorney who was willing to review it and make sure that it included everything we needed based on my parents' situation. So still, I had a review done by an attorney. So, make sure how your inheritance and assets pass to the next generation. Talk to that attorney. Make sure it's set up in your trust. If you want things to be very specific, they can handle that, all of that for you. And then number 10, community resources and support networks. So what's available both for the person you might be caretaking for and for yourself as a caretaker? What kind of support groups are there? What kind of activities are there, right? My parents live with me, but there's still senior centers in the community that provide different kinds of activities, opportunities for them to get out of the house, to mingle with other people their age, to build new friendships and things like that, right? And if they're still pretty healthy and things, like, I know my dad's stepmom, when she was in the nursing home, she was still very active, but she had some health issues that needed to be monitored. But she still went on trips like around the world with her retirement group. So, understand what resources are available there, but especially for you as a caretaker, make sure that you get into conversations. And I have somebody amazing I met a couple weeks ago that just sent me a link for a Zoom call with a gal that does exactly this, like shows up to have the conversations and make sure that the caretakers are caretaking for themselves as well. And so we're going to start tuning into that, via Zoom once a month. And I'm really excited because I think that's going to be beneficial for me and my dad. And the more you plug into these things, the more you learn as you go. Like, I didn't know anything other than I wanted to care for my parents, and I knew the basics of what they would need. But as far as what was available to me, what to expect, the emotions that come along with it, the heaviness that comes along with it all, and then resources or programs that help me know I'm not alone, help me realize other programs and things that might be available to my parents that I'm not even aware of. I've tripped over that a couple times already, where there's things they have access to that I didn't realize. And so you can make sure that you're taking care of all of those things for your loved one as well. So, like I said, this was a pretty high overview. I didn't really deep dive on anything. I kind of talked about a couple things, but I will deep dive further on these topics in future episodes. And when it comes to life insurance and long-term care and legacy planning, I've talked about those in past episodes as well, but you'll continue to hear about it as I go. And I hope you guys get excited for Some of the ways I'm pivoting with some of my content, still, of course, always talking about financial planning. I work with everybody who needs my services, right? So you don't have to be in the sandwich generation for me to support and help you. But that is my target market, those people that are in the same age group as me, trying to ensure that their plan for retirement is clear and concise, and that they're on track for it. And then they have the responsibility of caring for older loved ones now that our kids are grown and gone. So anyway, any questions you have, of course, always reach out to me. I'm your host, Natalie Kime. I appreciate you joining me today, and I look forward to continuing to bring you amazing content each week that will stretch both your mind and your financial future. I'll see you again next week. And as always, my contact information is in the show notes, so feel free to reach out if there's anything I can do to support you. Y'all have a great week. Bye-bye.